Hi, I'm Wheels Moyer, and I'm going to be talking about Toping dance for my research presentation. Let's go. Alright, so Toping is a traditional form of Indonesian dance in which one or more costume dancers interpret traditional narratives that were typically of fabled kings or myths when it originated. It formed in Bali and Java, which are two islands in Indonesia. It's also found in other regions, but that's where it really got its start in the 15th century. Um, the dances originated from tribal dances, which they held in honor of their ancestors, and they wear masks to play the roles of messengers from gods. Um, the themes were originally centered around nature and ancestral spirits. So it was more relative to the time back then, but those themes have since shifted to become more modernized. So Toping basics. The Toping dance is usually performed at Adolan, which is a temple anniversary celebration. Um, it can begin when many characters appear on stage, and the movements they originally portray when they enter the stage are not necessarily connected to the later story or to each other. It's just kind of a cool little intro dance. Um, all characters are wearing masks, and like I said, the themes have shifted from really religious tones and stories. But now, for example, the Adventures of Prince Panji is one of the most popular forms of Toping dance. So that's a really well-known story that's not, it has nothing to do with ancestral ties or religious connection. It's more just a fun, wholesome story. Um, when Hinduism became popular in Indonesia, they began to adapt some Toping dances to that. So Ramayana and Mahabharata have both been adapted into Toping dance performances, and those will be portrayed during the religious season at temples and are really well liked and respected. Toping Wali, or Toping Pagan, is a form of Toping which is performed by a single actor, and it's regarded by the viewers as having this profound magical and religious meaning. Um, that's because the performer who's doing the solo performance is both a priest and an actor, so they're a very important figure in the community. Um, and being the sole actor, the performer must change their mask to portray different characters several times throughout the performance, and um, a really it's regarded as very special to be a Toping Wali performer. You really have to be regarded very highly in the community. So now I'll play this video, just excuse me, to get the idea of what Toping Wali is about and to understand the movements and the music involved in Toping dance. Alright, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the mask in Toping. The masks are really important, being that all characters wear them, and traditionally they were made by, people whose their only job was to make masks for Toping performance. The masks help distinguish different types of characters. So characters of noble backgrounds wear masks for the entirety of the performance, and the masks cover their whole face, so they never speak. Um, their masks feature a delicate chin with a sharply pointed nose and elongated eyes and a small mouth. So those specific features would be associated with characters of noble background. All of the storytelling done in Toping dance is done by the servants and the jester character. So that's kind of the archetype. They could be like an actual house servant of a nobility character or just kind of an extra person. They wear masks which cover half of their face, which allow them to speak and do the storytelling. So the masks are traditionally carved out of wood called pule wood, and They were originally used because the Toping Goluk puppet dance kind of transformed into Toping dance with real actors. So the masks which are used resembled the faces of the puppets that formed from Toping puppet dance. So acting and storytelling in Toping dance. As I said before, the jester or servant characters do the storytelling, and usually in a Toping performance, there'd be 5 or 6 total actors, 2 of which would be doing the storytelling, and they each tell their view of the story and lead the audience through the story. So they're not really a narrator. They're not some omniscient character. They're someone who is involved, but they might not be as involved as the main characters, but they're just kind of observing and telling what's going on. When telling the story, actors will also add current gossip and jokes from around the town and region to add some laughter. So, as I said, the whole play would be performed typically when Toping was originated by 4 or 5 actors, and those actors would play all of the roles, including female roles. So when it got its start, Toping was just reserved for men. And then one actor can play many roles, which they would use multiple masks to portray. Actors can own up to 40 masks that would be just theirs. And so the mask is considered to have a deep, profound connection with the actor. And when they embody the mask, they're really embodying a character and a mindset. So it's not just a generic mask. They would have 40 distinct characters represented by a mask who they could then portray when they put the mask on. So the movement in Toping is pretty different. The characters enter the stage and dance to gamelan music, and the movements involved in dancing are typically short and defined, following the fast-paced beat of the music. Dancing can involve the mask and moving it and placing it on the face. They sometimes will rotate in circles, kind of shifting around to the music. Many of the movements involve squatting or what looks to be stretching, as you can see in the pictures. So, bending, raising a leg slowly. Often they'll pause and then do quick movements after that. So any form of that. But the movement is very defined and structured, and it's not very loose and flowy, but these short, quick movements. So first I will demonstrate the excerpt from the story of Rapunzel from the point of view of a servant storyteller to get the idea of how that would be. And then secondly, I will portray it as the story as a masked actor who doesn't speak but would represent high-class society. So here goes that. The only person who Rapunzel ever saw was the Wicked Witch. Rapunzel grew in to become very beautiful, with pretty eyes, a beautiful voice, and her golden hair grew very, very long. When Rapunzel was alone, all she would do was sing and weep. She led a very sad life. Every day the Wicked Witch came to the tower with food. She stood at the bottom of the tower and shouted, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Rapunzel would drop her braided hair through the window. The witch would use the hair as a rope to climb the tower. Sounds kind of painful to me. One day, a handsome prince was walking by and heard her sing. He fell in love with her voice immediately, and every day came to the tower to hear her sing. One day, the prince watched the witch climbing the tower with Rapunzel's hair. The next day, the prince returned and called to Rapunzel. "Let down your hair," he said. The prince climbed the tower, and the prince came to visit every night after. All right, so that gives you a feeling of the storytelling. It's as if they're observing it, not just that they're a third-party omniscient narrator. So now I will perform the Toping dance characteristic. Apply it to Toping dance. Okay, so that was a Toping adaptation. Obviously, it's kind of confusing because you would have the storyteller going while the movements are in place. It doesn't really make sense having it divided. But I think you kind of get the idea that it's not full on mimicry, like you're not doing every motion of the story. It's slightly more abstract. And during this performance, obviously, unless it was Toping Wally, I wouldn't be portraying every single character. And if I were to be, I would have different masks, so it would be more easily understandable. But that's the basic of Toping movement. I hope you learned a lot, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.